Welcome back to the historian's desk. Let us start with a picture-perfect Saturday morning. We are in the quiet, tree-lined suburbs of Ohio. The sun is shining through the curtains. A mother walks down the hallway to wake up her teenage son. He is the pride of the family. A high school football star with a college scholarship waiting for him, and a smile that lights up the room. She knocks on the door. There is no answer. She knocks again. Still silence. She opens the door. The room is spotless. The bed is made. The football trophies are gleaming on the shelf. Everything is exactly where it should be. But the boy is gone. He is not sleeping. He is gone. There is no blood. There is no sign of a struggle. There is no needle in his arm. The only clue is sitting on his desk. It is a single, small blue pill. It looks innocent. It looks exactly like the acne medication he takes. Or perhaps the Adderall he uses to study for his final exams. But it is a lie. Inside that pill is 2 milligrams of fentanyl. To understand what that means, I want you to go to your kitchen, find the salt shaker, pour out 2 tiny grains of salt into your hand. Just 2. In the world of opioids, those 2 microscopic grains are the only difference between a good night of sleep and never waking up again. How did this happen? How did a molecule, created in a laboratory to be a medical miracle, find its way into this bedroom to kill a child who just wanted to pass a test? To answer that, we have to go back to the beginning. We have to go back to a dream that turned into a nightmare. The year is 1959. To understand the magnitude of the tragedy that is about to unfold, we must first leave the grieving mother in Ohio and travel back in time. We must cross the Atlantic Ocean to a small, quiet town in northern Belgium called Beers. It is a place of red brick buildings and grey skies. And here, in a modest laboratory that smells of ether and ambition, a man named Paul Janssen is preparing to change the world. If you were to meet Paul Janssen, you would not see a villain. You would not see a cartel boss or a gangster. You would see a man of immense intellect, a chess player, a classical pianist, and perhaps the greatest medicinal chemist of the 20th century. Janssen was a man possessed by a singular, noble obsession. He wanted to kill pain. For thousands of years, as we discussed in our previous story, humanity had relied on the poppy. We had opium. We had morphine. We had heroin. They were effective, yes, but they were messy. They were blunt instruments. Morphine was slow to act. It lingered in the body for too long, and critically, it had a terrifying side effect on the cardiovascular system. It made the blood pressure drop. It made the heart unstable. For the surgeons of the 1950s, this was a nightmare. Imagine you're a heart surgeon in 1958. You have a patient on the table with a failing heart. You need to cut open their chest. To do that, you need to put them under deep anesthesia. But the very drugs you use to stop the pain might lower their blood pressure so much that it kills them before you even make the first incision. Doctors were trapped. They were desperate for a tool that was strong enough to silence the screaming nerves of the body, but precise enough to leave the heart alone. Paul Janssen believed he could build that tool. He did not look to the poppy field for answers. He looked to the chalkboard. He looked to synthetic chemistry. He began tinkering with the molecular structure of an existing synthetic drug called pethidine. He twisted the molecule. He added atoms here, removed atoms there. He was like a master locksmith trying to grind a key that would fit perfectly into the most secret locks of the human brain. He synthesized hundreds of compounds. Most were failures. Some were useless. Some were toxic. But then, he found it. The compound was labelled R4263. When Janssen and his team tested this new white powder on mice, they were confused. They injected the mice, and the reaction was so fast, so instantaneous, that they thought they had made a mistake in the calculation. The mice did not just get sleepy, they froze. Their tails stiffened. They entered a state of catatonic insensibility within seconds. Janssen realised he had not just improved upon morphine, he had eclipsed it. He had created fentanyl, chemically speaking. It was a masterpiece. It was 100 times more potent than morphine, 50 times more potent than heroin. But why? Why was it so strong? The answer lies in a concept called lipid solubility. Imagine the human brain is a fortress protected by a wall of fat. This is the blood-brain barrier. Morphine is like a soldier trying to climb over that wall in heavy armour. It is slow, it struggles, it takes time to get inside. Fentanyl is different. Fentanyl loves fat. It dissolves into the lipid layer instantly. It does not climb the wall. It walks right through it like a ghost. This allowed the drug to rush into the brain in a massive, concentrated wave. It hit the opioid receptors, the mu receptors, with the force of a sledgehammer. And the best part, it was clean. It did not crash the blood pressure. It did not destabilize the heart. When fentanyl was introduced to the medical world, it was hailed as a miracle, and it was a miracle. Suddenly, complex heart surgeries became safer. Patients in the intensive care unit, who had been suffering in agony because their hearts were too weak for morphine, could finally find peace. Paul Janssen had achieved his dream. He had separated the pain relief from the cardiac danger. He had given doctors a scalpel where before they only had a club. In 1960, the Food and Drug Administration approved fentanyl for use in the United States. It was marketed under the brand name Sublimaze. For decades, it remained exactly where it was supposed to be, in the operating room, under the bright lights. Monitored by anesthesiologists who watched every beat of the heart and every breath of the lungs, it was the perfect drug. But perfection in pharmacology is a double-edged sword. The very traits that made fentanyl a miracle in the hospital, its extreme potency and its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier instantly, were the same traits that would make it the deadliest recreational drug in human history. Paul Janssen had solved the problem of pain. But in doing so, he had unlocked a door that should have perhaps remained closed. He had proven that you do not need acres of land and sunshine to create the ultimate high. You just need a chemistry set and the right recipe for 40 years. The genie stayed in the bottle. The medical community respected the power of this drug. They knew that because it was 100 times stronger than morphine. The margin for error was razor thin. They knew that the difference between a therapeutic dose and a lethal dose was microscopic. But history tells us that respect eventually fades. Caution is replaced by complacency, and eventually by greed. As the 20th century drew to a close, a new philosophy began to take hold in the American medical system. A philosophy that said pain should be eliminated at all costs, and waiting in the wings. Ready to exploit this new philosophy was not just Paul Janssen's miracle invention. It was a new delivery system that would take the monster out of the hospital and bring it into the living room. The era of the patch and the lollipop was coming, and with it, the first cracks in the dam were about to appear. We are leaving the era of the surgeon and entering the era of the salesman. The year is 1990. The Cold War is ending, the internet is being born, and in the quiet corridors of American hospitals, a revolution is taking place. But this is not a revolution of guns or software. It is a revolution of philosophy. For decades, the medical establishment had viewed pain as a necessary evil. It was a symptom to be monitored, not a master to be served. If you had surgery, you were expected to hurt. If you broke a bone, you were told to be tough. The doctors were stingy with their morphine. They were terrified of creating addicts. But by the 1990s, the pendulum had swung to the other extreme. A new school of thought emerged, championed by pain specialists and aggressively amplified by pharmaceutical marketing. They declared that pain was not just a symptom. It was a disease in itself. They argued that leaving a patient in pain was not just bad medicine. It was unethical. It was torture. The American Pain Society introduced a phrase that would change everything. They called pain the fifth vital sign. Think about that. For centuries, doctors measured 4 things to see if you were alive: pulse, temperature, respiration rate, and blood pressure. These are objective facts. You can measure them with a machine. Now, they added a fifth: pain. But pain is not a fact. Pain is a feeling. It is subjective. It relies entirely on what the patient says. And suddenly, doctors were being graded and hospitals were being funded based on how effectively they could make that number go down to 0. The pressure was on, the doctors needed a weapon. They needed something stronger than Tylenol, but more convenient than a morphine drip attached to a metal pole. They needed fentanyl, but they needed it to be user-friendly. And so, the industry responded with a technological marvel that would become a silent killer. In 1990, a company called Alza Corporation, in partnership with Janssen Pharmaceutica, released Duragesic. It was a patch. It looked like a harmless, transparent square of plastic, no bigger than a business card. You simply stuck it on your skin, perhaps on your shoulder or your chest, and you forgot about it. It seemed like magic. It was designed for chronic pain, specifically for cancer patients who were suffering around the clock. Here is how it worked. The patch contained a reservoir of fentanyl gel. A membrane on the bottom of the patch controlled the release. It allowed the drug to seep slowly out of the gel, through the pores of the skin, into the fat layer, and finally into the bloodstream. It provided a steady, constant stream of relief for 72 hours. No needles, no pills to remember, just a sticker. But let us look closer at the physics of this convenience. To make the drug pass through the skin, which is designed by nature to keep things out, the concentration of fentanyl inside that patch had to be massive. It relied on a concentration gradient. It needed a huge amount of pressure behind the dam to force a trickle through the wall. This meant that a single Duragesic patch contained enough fentanyl to kill the patient several times over. If it were released all at once, the doctors called it a therapeutic reservoir. The streets would eventually call it a death trap. There were immediate problems that the shiny brochures did not mention: heat. If a patient wearing a patch took a hot bath, or used a heating pad, or simply developed a high fever, the pores of their skin would open up, the blood vessels would dilate, and the dam would break. The fentanyl would dump into the bloodstream all at once. Patients went to sleep in a warm bath and never woke up. And then there was the trash can. After 3 days, when the patient took the patch off, it was not empty. It still contained a significant amount of fentanyl. It was just no longer enough to push through the skin efficiently. So, the patient would crumple it up and throw it in the wastebasket. To a toddler exploring the bathroom, or a teenager looking for a high, that discarded plastic square was a loaded gun. Children were finding these used patches, sticking them on their bodies, or worse, putting them in their mouths. But the industry did not stop at the patch. They wanted something even faster. They wanted something for breakthrough pain, those sudden spikes of agony that hit a cancer patient even when they are medicated, in 1998. The Food and Drug Administration approved a product called Actique. If the patch was a loaded gun, Actique was a hand grenade disguised as a toy. It was a lozenge on a plastic stick. Let us be honest about what it was. It was a fentanyl lollipop. It came in berry flavour. It was sweet. You put it in your mouth and rubbed it against the inside of your cheek. The lining of the mouth is thin and full of blood vessels. The fentanyl absorbed instantly, shooting straight to the brain. It was incredibly effective. For a dying patient in a hospice, unable to swallow pills, this lollipop was a mercy. It allowed them to talk to their families, to smile, to pass away without screaming. But imagine the optical illusion this created. We took the most potent opioid known to man, a substance that kills in microgram doses, and we made it look exactly like candy. We gave it a handle, we gave it a flavour. We packaged it in foil wrappers that looked like they belonged in a candy store aisle. This was the psychological turning point. When you package poison as a treat, you dissolve the natural fear that humans have of danger. You normalise it. The medicine cabinet in the American bathroom ceased to be a place of healing and became an unlocked armory. By the late 90s, these products were no longer staying in the hospice wards. Doctors, under pressure to treat pain aggressively, began prescribing them for backaches, for migraines, for sports injuries. The fentanyl patch and the fentanyl lollipop began to drift. They drifted into the purses of grandmothers. They drifted into the glove compartments of minivans. They drifted into the pockets of high school students. The barrier between the hospital and the home had been shattered. Society was now awash in clinical-grade fentanyl. And we were told it was safe. We were told it was modern. We were told it was compassionate. But while the doctors were celebrating their victory over pain, a different group of people was watching. Far away from the bright lights of the American pharmacy, in the shadows of the geopolitical underworld, men with very different intentions were taking notes. They saw the power of this molecule. They saw how little of it was needed to drop a grown man, and they realized that fentanyl did not just have to be a medicine. In the year 2002, in a crowded theatre in Moscow, the world would find out what happens when you stop treating fentanyl as a cure and start using it as a weapon. The age of innocence was over. The age of the aerosol was about to begin. The year is 2002. We are leaving the sterile, well-lit pharmacies of the United States. We are travelling 4,000 miles east to a cold, rainy night in Moscow. It is October 23rd, inside the Dubrovka Theatre. 850 people are seated in red velvet chairs. They are watching a popular musical called Nordost. It is a scene of joy. Families, children, couples on dates. But at 9 p.m, the music stops. 40 armed militants storm the stage. They are Chechen separatists. They are dressed in camouflage. They fire assault rifles into the ceiling. The audience thinks it is part of the show. They clap, they laugh. Then they see the bombs. This was not a standard hostage situation. Among the attackers were 18 women, known as the Black Widows. They wore belts packed with high explosives and metal ball bearings, wired to detonators in their hands. They sat among the audience, spaced out perfectly. The threat was absolute. If the Russian police tried to storm the building, if a single shot was fired, the widows would release their thumbs, the theatre would turn into a crater, 850 civilians would vanish in pink mist for 57 hours. The world held its breath. The standoff was brutal. Hostages were denied food and water. The air inside became foul. The tension was unbearable. Outside, in the Kremlin, President Vladimir Putin and the Federal Security Service, the FSB, faced an impossible math problem. They could not negotiate. They could not attack. Any traditional military option would result in total mass murder. They needed a miracle. They needed a way to incapacitate 40 suicidal terrorists instantly, all at the same time, before a single one of them could press a button. They needed a weapon that was silent, invisible, and fast. They looked at their arsenal. Bullets were too slow, tear gas was too weak. And then, someone remembered the work of Paul Janssen. They remembered the molecule that could cross the blood-brain barrier in seconds. They remembered the chemical that could drop an elephant. They decided to use fentanyl, but they did not have patches or lollipops. They had created something far more terrifying. They had turned the drug into an aerosol, a gas. At 5 a.m, on the morning of October 26th, a strange sound began to hiss through the ventilation shaft of the theatre. Inside, a hostage noticed a greyish-white mist drifting down from the ceiling. It smelled sweet. Some said it smelled like cherries. Others said it smelled like almonds. People began to cough. Then they began to slump over. The terrorists on stage saw the mist. They put on gas masks, but the masks were old and ineffective against this specific chemical agent. They became confused. Their movements slowed. Their fingers slipped off the detonators, one by one. The gunmen and the suicide bombers fell asleep. They did not die instantly. They simply shut down. The fentanyl derivative had hit their brain stems, turning off the switch that keeps a human being awake. It seemed like a triumph. The Russian special forces, Spetsnaz, stormed the building. They moved through the silent rows of sleeping bodies. They shot the unconscious terrorist in the head to ensure the bombs would not be triggered. The building was secured. The explosives were defused. The operation was declared a success. But then, the tragedy shifted gears. The special forces began dragging the hostages out of the theatre. They carried them like rag dolls and laid them on the wet pavement outside. It was raining. It was cold. Hundreds of bodies were piled on the steps, on the sidewalk, in the mud. Ambulances screamed onto the scene. Doctors jumped out, ready to treat gunshot wounds and blast injuries. But there were no bullet holes. There was no blood. Instead, the doctors found a horror they did not understand. The hostages were blue. Their skin was cold. They were not breathing. The doctors grabbed the officers. "What is this?" they screamed. "What did you use? What is the gas?" If the doctors knew it was an opioid, they could have used naloxone. They could have reversed the overdose in seconds. They could have saved them. But the Russian government, obsessed with secrecy, refused to tell them. They declared the chemical formula a state secret. The doctors were flying blind. They suspected nerve gas, like sarin. They injected the patients with antidotes for nerve gas. But that was useless. Meanwhile, the hostages were dying, not from the terrorists, but from the cure. The fentanyl gas had done exactly what it was designed to do. It had suppressed their respiration. It had told their lungs to stop working, and because they had been dragged out and laid on their backs, their tongues rolled back into their throats, blocking their airways. They were suffocating in their sleep. 129 hostages died that day. Some estimates say the number is closer to 170. They were fathers, mothers, children. They had survived 3 days of terror, only to be killed by the very thing sent to rescue them. Later analysis by British and German laboratories, who examined the clothing of the survivors, found traces of cofentanyl and remifentanil. These are derivatives of fentanyl so potent that they make morphine look like water. Cofentanyl is 10,000 times stronger than morphine. It is used to sedate rhinoceroses and elephants. It was never meant to be inhaled by a child in a theatre seat. The Moscow theatre siege was a turning point in history. It was the moment the mask fell off. For 40 years, fentanyl had been a medical miracle, a tool of mercy. But on that cold morning in Russia, the world saw its true potential. It was a weapon of mass destruction. It proved that you did not need a nuclear bomb to kill a crowd of people silently. You just needed a few grams of white powder, dissolved into the air. The lesson should have been learned then. The world should have been terrified. We should have locked this molecule away in the deepest vaults of secure laboratories. But we did not. While the Russians were using it as a gas, halfway across the world, a different kind of tragedy was brewing. It was slower, it was legal, and it was being sold not by soldiers in gas masks, but by men in expensive suits. The pharmaceutical industry in America was watching, and they did not see a weapon. They saw a market. The theatre had been gassed. Now, it was time to gas the suburbs. But this time, they would not use ventilation shafts. They would use prescription pads. The year is 1996. While the Russian special forces were still years away from their deadly experiment in the Moscow theatre, a different kind of chemical warfare was being prepared in the United States. It was not being planned in a terrorist training camp or a secret government bunker. It was being planned in a mahogany-panelled boardroom in Stamford, Connecticut. This is the headquarters of Purdue Pharma, and the generals of this war were the Sackler family. If you looked at the Sacklers, you saw the very image of American success and benevolence. Their name was carved into the marble of the world's greatest museums. The Louvre in Paris, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, They were patrons of science and beauty. But behind the shiny brass plaques, they were building a machine designed to turn human suffering into gold. They had watched the medical community shift its stance on pain. They saw the fifth vital sign movement gaining momentum, and they realized that the old drugs, morphine, codeine, Vicodin, were not enough. They had a stigma. They were associated with death and addiction. Purdue wanted to sell an opioid that felt safe. An opioid that a doctor could prescribe to a grandmother for her arthritis, or to a high school quarterback for his torn rotator cuff. Without blinking an eye, they launched a product called OxyContin. The active ingredient was oxycodone. It was a semi-synthetic opioid, a chemical cousin of heroin, and twice as potent as morphine. In any other era, this drug would have been locked away for the dying. But Purdue had a story to tell. They claimed they had invented a special time-release mechanism. The pill was designed to dissolve slowly in the stomach over 12 hours. They argued that because the drug was released gradually, there would be no sudden rush of euphoria. And without the rush, they claimed, there would be no addiction. They printed this lie on glossy charts. They trained an army of sales representatives to march into doctors' offices and repeat a deadly mantra. The risk of addiction is less than 1%. Let that number sink in. Less than 1%. It was a fabrication. It was a statistical mirage based on a single, one-paragraph letter to the editor in a medical journal from 1980. But Purdue treated it as gospel. They funded conferences at luxury resorts in Florida and California. They bought lobster dinners for family physicians. They gave out branded plush toys, fishing hats, and swing music CDs. And the doctors, trusting the science, dazzled by the attention, and desperate to help their patients, began to write. They wrote millions of prescriptions. Suddenly, the bottle of pills on the nightstand became as common as a glass of water. But there was a flaw in the design, a catastrophic flaw that Purdue Pharma knew about and ignored. The time-release coating, the only thing standing between the patient and a massive dose of pure narcotic, could be defeated in 5 seconds if you crush the pill. The mechanism broke. Users discovered that if they smashed the pill into powder and snorted it, or dissolved it in water and injected it, they did not get a 12-hour trickle. They got a 12-hour punch, delivered instantly. It was a euphoria indistinguishable from high-grade heroin. But the real tragedy of this era was not the recreational user looking to get high. The real tragedy was the patient who followed the rules. Consider a 40-year-old construction worker in West Virginia. He hurts his back lifting a beam. His doctor prescribes OxyContin. He takes it exactly as directed. Swallow whole every 12 hours. But for many people, the pill did not last 12 hours. It wore off after 8, for the remaining 4 hours. The worker went into withdrawal. His bones ached. He sweated. He felt a creeping anxiety. He went back to the doctor and said, "It is not working. I am still in pain." And what did Purdue tell the doctors? They invented a grotesque concept called pseudo-addiction, they said. If a patient asks for more drugs, that is not addiction. That is just undertreated pain. Give them more. So the doctor increased the dose. 40 milligrams. 80 milligrams. 160 milligrams. The worker was not getting cured. He was getting colonized. His brain stopped producing its own natural painkillers. His dopamine receptors were being rewritten. He was becoming a legal addict, funded by his health insurance for a few years. It was a party. The pain vanished. The economy of Appalachia and the Rust Belt floated on a cloud of synthetic bliss. Pill mills sprang up in Florida, clinics that were nothing more than drug dealerships with waiting rooms. But then, the inevitable happened. The math stopped working. Around 2010, the government finally woke up. The Drug Enforcement Administration cracked down. Doctors were arrested. Guidelines were tightened. Purdue was forced to change the formula of the pill to make it harder to crush. The supply was cut off, but you cannot simply turn off a biological need by this time. Millions of Americans were physically dependent on the molecule. When the prescription ran out, or when the insurance company refused to pay, they did not just get better, they got sick. They faced the horror of withdrawal, the vomiting, the shaking, the sensation that their bones were breaking from the inside out. Desperate. They went to the pharmacy. No, said the pharmacist, they went to the doctor. I cannot help you any more, said the doctor. Terrified of losing his license, where does a respectable middle-class person go when the medical system abandons them? They go to the parking lot. They go to the street corner, and waiting there was the law of supply and demand. The drug dealers saw the opportunity of the century. They realized that these were not stereotypical junkies. These were customers with jobs, with cars, with houses, and they were begging for relief. The dealers made a simple economic offer. You cannot get OxyContin anymore, or if you can, it costs $80 a pill on the black market. That is $300 a day. You will go bankrupt. But, the dealer said, I have this little bag of powder. It does exactly the same thing. It binds to the same receptors. It stops the sickness, and it only costs $10. That powder was heroin. And just like that, Purdue Pharma built a 6-lane highway from the suburban medicine cabinet straight to the hell of street addiction. Hundreds of thousands of people crossed that bridge. They switched from the pill to the needle. But here is where the story takes its darkest turn. The demand for street opioids became so massive, so insatiable, that the traditional supply of heroin could not keep up. The poppy fields of Mexico and Afghanistan were too slow. They were too inefficient. The drug cartels looked at this ocean of new customers with extremely high tolerances developed by years of high-dose OxyContin, and they realized they needed a new product. They needed something stronger than heroin to satisfy these customers. They needed something cheaper to produce. They needed something that did not require a farm. The betrayal of Big Pharma did not just create a generation of addicts, it created the perfect market conditions for the arrival of the ghost. The table was set, the customers were starving, and the cartels were about to serve the main course. It was time to close the history books on the poppy flower. It was time to open the chemistry textbooks of Paul Janssen once again. The transition from agriculture to industry was about to begin, and the result would make the OxyContin crisis look like a dress rehearsal. The year is 2013. If you were an epidemiologist at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, looking at the graphs on your wall, you would have seen something terrifying. For years, the line-tracking drug overdose deaths had been rising steadily. It was a tragedy. But it was a predictable tragedy. It followed the laws of gravity. But in 2013, the line did not just rise, it went vertical. It shot up like a rocket. The CDC calls this moment the third wave. The first wave was the prescription pills. The second wave was heroin. But this third wave was something entirely different. It was not driven by a harvest. It was not driven by a new pill from a pharmaceutical company. It was driven by a technological disruption that would render the old ways of the drug trade obsolete. The age of agriculture was ending. The age of synthetic terror had begun. To understand why this happened, you have to look at the drug trade not as a crime, but as a business. For 100 years, if you wanted to be a drug lord, you had to be a farmer. You were a slave to the earth. You needed thousands of acres of land in the mountains of Mexico, Colombia, or Afghanistan. You needed an army of peasants to score the poppy pods. You needed to pray for rain. You needed to bribe the local police and the army to not burn your fields. And then you had to wait months for the flower to bloom. It was slow. It was messy. It was expensive. But the new generation of cartel bosses, specifically the leaders of the Sinaloa Cartel and the rising, hyper-violent Jalisco New Generation Cartel, looked at this business model and saw a flaw. They asked a simple question. Why wait for nature? Why wait for a flower to grow when you can just cook? They remembered the work of Paul Janssen. They remembered the patent from 1959, and they realised that the recipe for fentanyl was not a secret. It was public knowledge. The economics were irresistible. To produce 1 kilogram of heroin, you need acres of poppies and months of labour. It costs roughly $5,000 to produce. To produce 1 kilogram of fentanyl, you do not need a farm, you do not need sunlight, you just need a basement, a few glass beakers, and some chemicals. The cost is roughly the same, maybe a few $1,000s, but here is the terrifying math that changed the world. Because fentanyl is 50 times more potent than heroin, that single kilogram of powder can be cut, diluted, and stretched to create the equivalent of 50 kilograms of street-level product. The profit margin was not just high, it was astronomical. A $5,000 investment in chemicals could yield millions of dollars on the street. The cartel stopped looking at the weather reports. They started looking at shipping manifests. They built a supply chain that spanned the globe, a ghost network that was almost impossible to track. It began in the vast industrial zones of China. In cities like Wuhan, thousands of legitimate chemical factories were producing the precursors. These are the raw ingredients needed to make fentanyl on their own. These chemicals are legal. They're used to make soap, pesticides, and medicines. They were labelled as industrial solvents or pigments. They were loaded onto container ships and flown on commercial cargo planes. They crossed the Pacific Ocean, hiding in plain sight, until they reached the ports of Manzanillo or Lázaro Cárdenas in Mexico. From there, the chemicals were trucked into the lawless Badlands controlled by the cartels, but the cartels did not build sterile laboratories like Paul Janssen had in Belgium. They built super labs in the jungle, or in crude warehouses in the desert. Inside these labs, there were no white coats, there were no safety protocols, there were just men in hazmat suits and gas masks, stirring vats of boiling poison with wooden paddles. They were not chemists, they were cooks. And they were cooking with a substance so toxic that a spill the size of a coffee cup could kill everyone in the room. This is where the story shifts from economics to massacre. The cartels faced a marketing problem. Fentanyl provides a powerful high. Yes, but it is short. Heroin lasts for hours, fentanyl lasts for minutes. And more importantly, the customers, the addicts on the streets of Philadelphia and San Francisco, were afraid of it. They knew it killed people. They wanted heroin. So, the cartels decided to lie. They began mixing the fentanyl into the heroin supply. They used it as a booster to make weak, cheap heroin feel like premium product. The users did not know. They bought their usual bag. They prepared their usual dose. They injected it, and they died before the needle left their arm. This created the hot bag phenomenon. Imagine making chocolate chip cookies. You pour the dough into the bowl, and then you pour in the chocolate chips. If you do not mix it perfectly, some cookies will have 0 chips, and one cookie will be made entirely of chocolate. In a pharmaceutical factory, giant machines ensure that every pill has exactly the same amount of medicine, but in a cartel lab, the mixing is done by hand, maybe in a plastic bucket, maybe in a cement mixer. This leads to clumping. A batch of drugs goes out to the street, 999 bags a week, but one bag contains a concentrated chocolate chip of pure fentanyl. The person who buys that bag does not stand a chance. This is why we started seeing mass casualty events. Police would arrive at a park or a trap house and find 4 or 5 people dead in the same room. They had all shared the same bad batch, but the cartels did not stop at heroin. They realized they could reach a whole new market, a market that would never touch a needle. They bought industrial pill presses. These are loud, heavy machines that can punch out thousands of tablets an hour. They took the fentanyl powder, they mixed it with filler, they dyed it blue, and they stamped it with familiar codes. M30, Xanax, Percocet, Vicodin. They created fake pills that looked exactly like the ones you get from a pharmacy. They were identical in weight, colour and marking. This was the Trojan horse in its final, deadliest form. Now, the customer did not have to be a hardcore addict. The customer could be a college student stressed about finals, looking for an Adderall on the black market. The customer could be a construction worker whose insurance had run out, buying a Percocet from a friend of a friend. The customer could be a teenager experimenting at a party. They swallow the pill, thinking it is safe, thinking it is medicine. 20 minutes later, their heart stops. They are not overdosing in the traditional sense. They are being poisoned. They are victims of a bait and switch fraud that cost them their lives. By 2017, the death toll in America had doubled. By 2021, it exceeded 70,000 a year. The poppy fields of Afghanistan, once the centre of the world's concern, had become almost irrelevant. The war on drugs had spent decades fighting farmers, but while the DEA was burning crops, the enemy had moved indoors. The threat was no longer agricultural, it was industrial, and just when experts thought it could not get worse, the chemists in the jungle labs decided to push the envelope one step further. They looked at fentanyl, which was already killing 50,000 people a year, and they said, "We can make it stronger." They went back to the archives of veterinary science. They ignored the warnings on the labels. They found something that wasn't designed for humans at all. It was designed to knock out a creature weighing 5 tons. And they decided to put it on the street. The era of fentanyl was bad, but the era of the elephant tranquilizer was about to begin. The year is 2017 by this point. American society felt like it had been battered into submission. We had buried our dead from the pill mills. We were burying our dead from the heroin surge. And we were currently fighting a losing battle against fentanyl. There was a collective sense of exhaustion. Police officers were tired, paramedics were burned out, parents were terrified. But there was also a grim assumption. We assumed that we had reached the bottom. We assumed that chemistry had hit a wall. We thought we knew the face of the devil. We were wrong. While the Drug Enforcement Administration was scrambling to buy test strips to detect fentanyl, the chemists in the dark corners of the underworld had already moved on. They had opened a new door. They had excavated a new basement in hell. As the authorities began to get better at seizing fentanyl at the border, the cartels faced a logistical problem. Fentanyl was compact. Yes, but they wanted something even smaller, something so dense, so potent, that you could smuggle 1 million doses in a package the size of a matchbox. They went back to the library. They raided the dusty archives of veterinary medicine, and they found a compound that had been synthesized in 1974. Its name was carfentanil. I need you to understand exactly what this substance is. This is not a drug for humans. It was never intended for human consumption. It is not found in hospitals. You will not find it in an operating room. It is found in zoos. It is found in game reserves in Africa. It is a sedative designed for elephants, for rhinoceroses, for creatures that weigh 5 tons or more. Let the numbers tell the story. Morphine is the baseline. Heroin is 2 times stronger than morphine. Fentanyl is 100 times stronger than morphine. Carfentanil is 10,000 times stronger than morphine. It is 100 times stronger than fentanyl. These numbers are so large they become abstract. So let us visualize it. Imagine a standard sugar packet you find at a diner. If that packet was filled with pure carfentanil, it would contain enough poison to kill hundreds of people. Now, imagine a single poppy seed. Cut that seed into 1,000 pieces. Take one of those microscopic crumbs. That is a lethal dose for a human being. When carfentanil began appearing on the streets of Ohio, Florida, and Kentucky, mixed into heroin or pressed into fake pills, the rules of the game changed instantly. Death was no longer a risk that you calculated, it was a certainty. Police and paramedics began arriving at crime scenes that defied logic. in the old days of heroin. An overdose was a slow fade. The user would nod off. Their breathing would slow down over the course of minutes or hours. There was time to intervene. With fentanyl, there is no time. First responders found victims with the needle still in their arm. They found people slumped over, mid-sentence. They found sandwiches with one bite taken out of them next to the body. The shutdown was so fast, so violent, that the victim did not even have time to pull the plunger out of the vein. They were dead before the drug reached their heart, and the scenes were eerily silent. There was no blood. There was no sign of a struggle. There was only absolute stillness. They found a man slumped over a steering wheel at a green light, his foot still on the brake. They found a young couple collapsed on the bathroom floor of a gas station, holding hands. They found entire groups of friends dead in a single living room, sitting on the couch as if they were watching television. They had all shared the same tainted batch, and they had all died within seconds of each other. This was the invisible killer, but the terror of fentanyl went beyond the users. It began to threaten the people sent to save them. In East Liverpool, Ohio, a police officer brushed a small amount of white powder off his uniform after a traffic stop. He did not snort it. He did not inject it. He just touched it with his bare hand, and then perhaps wiped his face. Minutes later, he collapsed. His eyes rolled back. He was dying. Why? Because fentanyl is so potent that it can be absorbed through the skin, or inhaled as microscopic dust particles in the air. Suddenly, a routine traffic stop became a hazmat situation. Police departments had to change their protocols overnight. Officers were told, do not field test drugs, do not touch anything, do not sniff the air. If they saw white powder in a car, they had to treat it like radioactive waste. They had to put on respirators, double gloves, and protective suits. Can you imagine the psychological toll this takes on a community? When a police officer is afraid to touch a piece of evidence because it might kill him, how can a mother feel safe letting her child walk to school? And yet, the economics of this poison were irresistible to the traffickers. The logic of the cartel is the logic of capitalism stripped of all morality. If I am a smuggler, my biggest risk is getting caught crossing the border. The bigger the package, the higher the risk. With heroin, to make $1 million, I need to smuggle a heavy, bulky backpack. With fentanyl, I need a shoebox. With fentanyl, I can hide $1 million worth of product inside a printer cartridge. I can hide it inside the lining of a tie. I can mail it in a standard envelope. It is the ultimate dark logistics. And because it's so potent, the dealers on the street had to cut it down. They had to dilute it heavily to sell it without killing every single customer instantly. But remember, these are not chemists. These are guys in basements using blenders. The margin for error with fentanyl is the size of a few grains of salt. The margin for error with fentanyl is non-existent. It is invisible to the human eye. If the dealer sneezed while mixing the batch, or if the blender did not mix the powder perfectly for 5 hours, you got hot spots. You got a pill that was 99% filler and one microscopic speck of fentanyl. That speck is a bullet. We began to see a phenomenon called the Grey Death. A concrete-like mixture of heroin, fentanyl, carfentanil, and other synthetic opioids. It looked like cement mix, and it was killing people faster than the coroners could pick them up. Morgues in states like Ohio began to overflow. They had to rent refrigerated trucks to store the bodies because they ran out of drawers. Coroners fell weeks behind on autopsies. This was not a drug crisis anymore. It was a mass casualty event happening in slow motion, and the victims were not just the hardcore users, because carfentanil was being pressed into fake Xanax and fake Adderall. It was finding its way into the hands of people with zero tolerance. A teenager who weighed 50 kilograms, a college student who had never taken an opioid in their life. When carfentanil hits a brain that has no tolerance, it does not just sedate, it annihilates. It shuts down the respiratory drive so completely that even multiple doses of Narcan, the antidote, are sometimes not enough to wake them up. We had reached a point where a substance used to tranquilize a 5-ton African elephant was being sold to high school kids in the suburbs of America. The absurdity of it was only matched by the horror. It felt like we were living in a science fiction movie where the atmosphere itself had turned poisonous. But the story of the opioid crisis is a story of escalation. Just when you think the ceiling has been reached, the floor falls out from under you, while carfentanil was terrifying the police. Another tragedy was unfolding in the gilded elevators of the rich and famous. We often think of drug addiction as a problem of poverty, a problem of the despairing classes, but the ghost does not check your bank account. It does not care if you're homeless, or if you're one of the greatest musicians of all time. In 2016, the elevator doors opened at Paisley Park, and the world realised that no amount of money could build a wall high enough to keep the monster out. The death of a legend was about to prove that in the age of synthetics. We are all playing Russian roulette. The year is 2016. We have spoken about the coal miners in Appalachia. We have spoken about the teenagers in the suburbs. We have spoken about the grim reality of the street corner. But there is a lingering belief in our culture, a myth that says money buys safety. We believe that if you are rich enough, if you are famous enough, if you live in a gated compound with private security and private doctors, the darkness cannot touch you. On the morning of April 21st, 2016, that myth died in an elevator in Chanhassen, Minnesota. The location is Paisley Park, the private estate and recording studio of the musician known to the world as Prince. Prince was not just a rock star. He was an avatar of perfection. He was a vegan. He did not drink alcohol. He was known for firing band members who used drugs. He was a man who controlled every single aspect of his environment, from the lighting on stage to the scent of the air in his studio. He was disciplined. He was divine. But on that morning, staff members found him slumped on the floor of the elevator. He was cold. He was 57 years old. When the news broke, the world was in shock. But the initial assumption was the tired old cliché of rock and roll. People whispered. They thought. Another star gone too soon. Another addict. But the police investigation revealed a story that was far more tragic and far more terrifying than a simple overdose. Investigators searched the compound. They found pill bottles. They were labelled Watson 385. To the trained eye, this is hydrocodone, also known as Vicodin. It is a standard, mid-level opioid painkiller. It is the kind of thing a dentist might prescribe after a root canal, or a doctor might give for a broken ankle. It made sense. Prince had spent decades dancing in high heels. He had jumped off pianos. He had performed splits on concrete stages night after night. His hips were destroyed. He was in constant, chronic, physical pain. He was not looking for a party. He was looking for relief so he could continue to perform. So, he took a pill. He assumed, like any of us would, that the pill inside the bottle matched the label on the outside. He was wrong. When the coroner released the toxicology report, and when the labs analysed the pills found in Paisley Park, the truth came out. The pills were counterfeits. They looked perfect. They had the right colour. They had the right shape. They had the stamp Watson 385 pressed into them with industrial precision, but they contained 0 hydrocodone instead. They were made of fentanyl. Someone, somewhere in the supply chain, had used a pill press to mould fentanyl powder into the shape of a Vicodin. Prince thought he was taking a glass of wine. He was actually drinking a bottle of Everclear. The dose he took was likely thousands of times stronger than what his body expected. He did not drift away. He was executed by a chemical imposter. This was the moment the counterfeit crisis hit the mainstream. If Prince, a man with hundreds of millions of dollars, a man with a team of assistants, a man who demanded the best of everything, could not buy a safe pill, then who can? The death of Prince revealed a terrifying new reality of the black market. The drug cartels had realized that selling powder is messy. Powder scares people. Powder implies addiction. Powder implies junkie. But a pill is clean. A pill is medical. A pill is trusted. We are trained from childhood to trust the little round tablet. We take Tylenol for headaches. We take antibiotics for infections. We trust the shape. The cartels weaponize that trust. They imported industrial pill presses from China. These are machines the size of a refrigerator that can punch out thousands of tablets an hour. They created dyes, the metal molds, that were exact replicas of the molds used by Pfizer, by Purdue, by CVS. They started pressing fentanyl into everything. They made fake Xanax bars for anxiety. They made fake Adderall for focus. They made fake OxyContin for pain, and they flooded the market. This changed the demographics of death completely. Suddenly, the victim was not just the person injecting heroin under a bridge. The victim was the college student who bought an Adderall from a friend in the library to study for finals. The victim was the anxious executive who bought a Xanax to sleep before a big meeting. The victim was the injured athlete who bought a Vicodin because his prescription ran out. They are not seeking a death-defying high. They are seeking function. They are seeking normalcy. And they are playing Russian roulette. The Drug Enforcement Administration released a statistic that should keep every parent awake at night. They tested thousands of these seized counterfeit pills. The result? 4 out of 10 counterfeit pills contain a lethal dose of fentanyl. That means if you buy a pill off the street, or from a friend, or from a dealer on social media, you have a 40% chance of dying immediately. Imagine a bowl of Skittles. Imagine I tell you that 40% of them are poisoned with cyanide. Would you eat one? Would you let your child eat one? Of course not. But because these look like medicine, people take the risk. They think. It looks like the pill I got from the doctor last year. It must be fine. The death of Prince was a warning flare. It showed us that the supply chain had been completely poisoned. It showed us that the label on the bottle means nothing. The stamp on the pill means nothing. In the age of synthetic drugs, visual inspection is useless. You cannot see fentanyl, you cannot smell it, you cannot taste it. And the people pressing these pills, they are not pharmacists. They are criminals in a garage. If the machine shakes a little bit, or if the powder is not mixed perfectly, one pill gets 1 milligram. The next pill gets 5 milligrams. The first pill does nothing. The second pill stops your heart. It is a game of chance where the house always wins, and the player pays with their life. After Prince died, the phrase "one pill can kill" began to appear on billboards and in public service announcements. It sounds like a catchy slogan. But it is a literal description of the pharmacology. For a generation of young people, the era of experimentation is over. In the 1970s or 90s, if you experimented with drugs, you might get addicted, you might get arrested, you might have a bad trip. Today, if you experiment once, you die. There is no learning curve. There is no second chance. And the most terrifying part, you do not even have to go looking for it on a dark street corner. The dealer is no longer a shady man in a trench coat. The dealer is an algorithm. The market has moved from the alleyway to the iPhone. Prince died alone in an elevator, surrounded by his awards and his instruments. He was a victim of a physical market, but the next generation of victims would be found in their childhood bedrooms, phone in hand, victims of a digital market that delivers death faster than a pizza. The ghosts were about to enter the machine. The year is 2023. We have spent this entire journey looking at physical locations. The poppy field in Afghanistan, the factory in China, the pharmacy in Ohio, the elevator in Minnesota. But the new front line of the opioid war is not a place you can visit on a map. It has no GPS coordinates. It has no physical borders. It is located inside a device that is currently sitting in your pocket. or perhaps in the hand of your teenage child at the dinner table. We're entering the era of the digital dealer for 50 years. The greatest barrier to drug addiction was fear of the process. If a suburban teenager in 1990 wanted to buy drugs, they had to cross a physical and psychological line. They had to leave their safe neighborhood. They had to drive to a bad part of town. They had to find a stranger on a street corner. They had to look a criminal in the eye. It was terrifying. It was dangerous. And that fear saved millions of lives. The friction of the transaction was a safety mechanism. But Silicon Valley, in its quest to make our lives more convenient, has inadvertently removed that friction. They have deleted the fear today. The drug deal does not happen in a dark alley. It happens on the For You page. It happens in the Stories feed. Platforms like Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and Telegram have become the largest open-air drug markets in human history. But if you look at your child's phone, you will not see bags of white powder. You will not see needles. You will not see advertisements that say fentanyl for sale. You will see a menu. But it is written in a code that you do not speak. It is written in emojis, to a parent. An emoji is a cute cartoon, a smiley face, a heart, a fruit, to a drug dealer, and to your child. It is a global encryption language. Let us crack the code. You see a snowflake emoji. That is not about the weather. That means cocaine. You see a blue diamond or a blue heart. That is not a symbol of love. That is a counterfeit Percocet or OxyContin. You see a school bus. That's a yellow Xanax bar. You see a cookie. That is a large batch. You see an electrical plug. That means the plug, the connection. The dealer is online and ready to sell. This is steganography. Hiding a message in plain sight. And the dealers are not just waiting for customers to find them. They're aggressive marketers. They use the algorithm. The social media algorithm is designed to keep you engaged. If you look at a video of a cat, it shows you more cats. If a teenager lingers for just a few seconds on a post about anxiety, or depression, or partying, the algorithm takes note. It begins to feed them content. And hiding inside that stream of content are the dealers. They post flashy videos, stacks of cash, fast cars, and menus of colourful pills listed with prices, accompanied by a string of emojis. Blue M30s, $30. It looks like a video game. It looks like a joke. The teenager replies, "Do you have any Dans?" The dealer replies instantly, "Yes." "What is your address?" The transaction moves to an encrypted messaging app like Signal or Telegram. The payment is sent via Venmo or Cash App. It looks like they are paying a friend for pizza. And then comes the delivery. The dealer does not meet them under a bridge. The dealer drives a Honda Civic. He pulls up to your suburban driveway. He sends a text. "I'm outside." Your child tells you they're going out to get the mail, or they're just stepping onto the porch to get some fresh air. They walk out. The car window rolls down. A handshake happens. They walk back inside. The whole process takes 30 seconds. You're in the kitchen, making dinner. You think your child is safe. You think they are home. The doors are locked. The alarm system is on. But the predator is already inside the house. He came in through the Wi-Fi. This is the nightmare of the digital age. The bedroom door, once the ultimate barrier of safety, is now a lie. And let us talk about the product being delivered. The teenager on Snapchat is not looking for fentanyl. I cannot stress this enough. They are looking for a Xanax because they are stressed about school. They are looking for an Adderall because they have a paper due. They are looking for a Percocet because they hurt their knee at soccer practice. They think they are buying a pharmaceutical product. They think there is quality control. But the plug on Snapchat is not a pharmacist. He's a 20-year-old kid who bought a bag of pressed pills from a cartel broker. He does not know what is in them. He does not care. He sells the pill to your child for $20. Your child goes back to their room. They put on their headphones, they scroll through TikTok, they swallow the pill, and then the silence begins. The fentanyl hits their system. Their breathing slows. Their oxygen levels drop. They lose consciousness. The phone falls from their hand. The screen is still glowing, playing loop after loop of colourful videos. Downstairs, you yell up to them, "Good night, honey, I love you." You hear nothing back. You assume they are asleep. You assume they are tired. You go to bed. You sleep peacefully, believing that your world is secure. The next morning, you wake up. You make coffee. You go upstairs to wake them for school. You knock. No answer. You open the door. And that is when the universe collapses. This scenario is not fiction. It is happening every single day in America. It is happening in wealthy neighborhoods. It is happening in poor neighborhoods. We have spoken to parents who have lost their children this way. And the thing that haunts them the most is the deception. They say, "I checked his backpack. I checked his drawers. I smelled his clothes. There was no sign." Of course there was no sign. The sign was a blue diamond emoji on a screen that locks with a Face ID. The drug trade has been Uberized. It has been turned into a frictionless, on-demand service. It has adopted the efficiency of Amazon Prime and the ruthlessness of the Sinaloa Cartel. The social media companies say they are trying. They say they use artificial intelligence to scan for these posts and delete them, but it is a game of whack-a-mole. For every account they ban, 10 new ones appear. The dealers change the emojis, they change the slang, they adapt faster than the safety teams can write code, and the algorithm, which is designed to maximize profit through engagement, is fundamentally at odds with safety. The algorithm does not have a conscience, it only has metrics. If a dealer keeps users on the app, the algorithm promotes the dealer. We are facing a technological crisis that amplifies the chemical crisis. The parents of the 1980s had to worry about their kids sneaking out of the window. The parents of the 2020s have to worry about the world sneaking in through the window. And the terrifying truth is that we are outnumbered. We are fighting a chemical weapon that is invisible, delivered by a digital network that is encrypted, sold by a dealer who is anonymous. But as the death toll rises, and the colourful pills continue to flow into our homes, the cartels decided that visual deception was not enough. They realised that to hook the next generation, the youngest generation, they needed to change the aesthetic completely. They looked at the blue pills, they looked at the white powder, and they thought, this looks too medicinal, this looks too serious. Let us make it look like fun. And so, in 2022, the police opened a seized shipment and gasped. They did not see medicine. They saw what looked like a bag of Halloween candy. The Rainbow Fentanyl had arrived, and the target demographic was no longer the anxious college student. It was the child. The year is 2022. We have watched the opioid crisis evolve like a deadly virus. It started as a pharmaceutical pill in a bottle. Then, it mutated into a brown powder in a glassine envelope. Then, it shifted back into a counterfeit blue pill that looked like medicine. Each iteration was designed to solve a problem for the seller. How do we move the product? How do we hide it? How do we get the customer to trust it? But in August of 2022, officers at the port of Nogales in Arizona opened a shipment that stopped them cold. They were used to finding drugs hidden in tires. They were used to finding drugs hidden in gas tanks. They were used to seeing bags of nondescript blue tablets. But when they cut open this specific package, they did not see the dull, clinical blue of the counterfeit oxycodone. They saw a rainbow. Spilled out on the inspection table were thousands of pills in vibrant, neon colours, bright pink, electric lime green, sunset orange, deep purple. Yellow. They looked like Skittles. They looked like sweet tarts. They looked like the jagged pieces of sidewalk chalk that children used to draw hopscotch squares on the driveway. The officers were confused. Was this a joke? Was this a decoy? They ran the field test. The machine beeped instantly. Positive for fentanyl. This was the moment the world was introduced to Rainbow Fentanyl. and it marked the moment when the drug trade finally abandoned all pretense of being a medical business and embraced a strategy that was pure, predatory nihilism. The media called it a marketing ploy, but that phrase is too soft. Marketing is what you do to sell sneakers. This was weaponized camouflage. To understand why the cartels did this, we have to look at the psychology of the consumer for a decade. The blue M30 pill was the gold standard. It worked because it looked like medicine. It appealed to the person who wanted to fix a problem, pain, anxiety, withdrawal. It mimicked the authority of the doctor, but the market was shifting. The cartels wanted to expand. They wanted to reach a demographic that did not care about back pain. They wanted to reach the thrill seeker, the party-goer, and most terrifyingly, the child. Visual language matters. If you hand a teenager a brown, lumpy rock of heroin, their instinct is fear. It looks dirty. It looks dangerous. If you hand them a white, clinical pill, their instinct is caution. It looks serious. It looks like something their parents take. But if you hand them a bright pink pill that looks like candy, the fear evaporates. Our brains are hardwired by evolution to associate bright colours with fruit, with sweetness, with energy. In the modern world, we associate these colours with toys, with cartoons, with fun, by dyeing fentanyl in these colours. The cartels were hacking the safety mechanisms of the human brain. They were Disney-fying death. They were signalling that this was not a hard drug. This was a party favour. This was safe. We began to see these pills appearing in high schools and middle schools. Kids were calling them Skittles or Pop Rocks. Imagine a bowl of these pills at a party. It looks festive. It looks harmless. It lowers the barrier to entry so significantly that a kid who would never dream of sticking a needle in their arm might pop a pink pill into their mouth just to be part of the group. But inside that pink shell, the chemistry remained exactly the same. The dose was still lethal. The margin for error was still zero. A pink pill kills you just as dead as a blue one. However, there was a second, more pragmatic reason for the colour shift. A reason that had nothing to do with marketing and everything to do with logistics. Smuggling. By 2022. US Customs and Border Protection had become very good at spotting the blue M30 pills. Their X-ray machines and their visual recognition software were trained to look for that specific shade of blue, that specific shape. The cartels are nothing if not adaptable. They realised that if they flooded the border with a spectrum of colours, they could confuse the senses. A bag of mixed colour pills, when viewed on an X-ray scanner, looks remarkably similar to a bag of legitimate vitamin C tablets, or candy, or sidewalk chalk. It blends in with the millions of tons of legitimate commercial goods that cross the border every day. It was a tactical camouflage designed to defeat the machine. But the cost of this tactic was paid by the most vulnerable members of our society. In the fall of 2022, a panic swept through American parents. Halloween was approaching. News reports warned that drug dealers might be handing out Rainbow Fentanyl to trick-or-treaters. Now, let us be rational for a moment. The likelihood of a drug dealer giving away expensive product to random children for free is low. It is bad business. But the panic was rooted in a valid fear. The fear of accidental ingestion. If a dealer drops a bag of heroin on the playground, a 6-year-old child will likely ignore it. It looks like dirt. If a dealer drops a bag of blue M30s, a child might ignore it. It looks like medicine, and kids hate medicine. But if a dealer drops a bag of Rainbow Fentanyl, a child will pick it up. They will think it is candy. They will put it in their mouth. And because a child's body mass is so small, and their opioid tolerance is zero, the death is almost instantaneous. We started seeing cases that broke the hearts of even the most hardened detectives. Toddlers finding pills left on coffee tables by addicted parents. Young siblings sharing a treat they found in an older brother's backpack. The cartels had erased the visual warning signs of poison. In nature, bright colours are usually a warning. The poison dart frog is neon blue and yellow to tell predators, "Do not eat me, I will kill you." The cartels inverted this law of nature. They use bright colours to say, "Eat me, I am delicious, I am fun." It was a violation of the unwritten rules of the underworld, even in the violent days of the mafia, or the crack wars of the 80s. There was a sense that children were off limits. You did not package crack cocaine in Happy Meal boxes, but in the age of fentanyl, there are no lines, there are no rules. There is only the algorithm of profit. If the algorithm says that bright colours increase sales among the 18 to 24 demographic by 20%, then the factories in Mexico will switch the dye vats from blue to pink overnight. The emergence of Rainbow Fentanyl marked the end of the accidental addict narrative that started with Purdue Pharma. The people taking these pills were not grandmothers with back pain, they were young people looking for an escape. And the cartels met them there, not with a medical solution, but with a colourful lie. They transformed the drug from a dark, shameful secret into a fashion accessory. And in doing so, they ensured that the next wave of funerals would not be for the middle-aged. The coffins were getting smaller. As we look across the landscape of America in the wake of this rainbow flood, we begin to see the consequences. We do not just see statistics, we see voids. We see empty spaces where a future should have been. And nowhere is this void more painful, more visible, and more utterly devastating than in the high school gymnasiums of May and June. The music plays, the names are called, the parents cheer, but if you look closely at the rows of graduates, you will see gaps in the line. You will see the places where the rainbow generation should have been standing. Let us go to one of those graduations now. Let us look at the price of a pink pill. The month is May, or perhaps it is June. Across the United States, from the high school gymnasiums of Ohio to the university stadiums of California, a familiar ritual is taking place. The air smells of floor wax and cheap cologne. The band is playing pomp and circumstance, slightly out of tune. Parents are sweating in their Sunday best, holding their phones up, waiting for that one moment. The moment a name is called, it is a season of celebration. It is the finish line of childhood. But if you look closely at the rows of folding chairs, you will notice a disturbing new pattern in the geometry of the graduation ceremony. You will see gaps. You will see a chair that is empty, or perhaps a chair that holds only a framed photograph and a single rose. When the principal reads the name associated with that chair, the applause is different. It is not the raucous cheering of teenagers. It is a heavy, sombre applause. It is the sound of a community acknowledging a ghost. This is the visual legacy of the fentanyl crisis. Statistics are cold. 107,000 deaths in a year is a number so large that the human brain cannot process it. It becomes abstract. It becomes weather. But an empty chair in a row of gowns is not abstract. It is a physical void. Let me tell you a story about one of those voids. It involves a father. Let us call him David. David lives in a quiet house, the kind of house that used to be noisy with video games and basketballs bouncing in the driveway. Now, it is silent. His son was 22 years old. He was a senior in college. He was studying engineering. He had a job lined up. He had a girlfriend. He had a future. One night, under the pressure of finals, he made a mistake. He bought a pill to help him stay awake and study. He did not wake up. David received the phone call that every parent fears. The call that splits your life into before and after. But months later, graduation day arrived. The university sent a package to David's house. Inside was his son's cap and gown. The university meant it as a gesture of respect, a posthumous degree. But for David, it was an artifact of a life unlived. Most parents spend graduation morning ironing the gown, straightening the tie, fixing the tassel. They complain about the heat. They laugh. David spent that morning alone in the living room. He took the gown out of the plastic. He put it on a hanger. He hung it on the wall. And then, He did something that breaks the heart of anyone who hears it. He pinned the cap to the top of the hanger. He arranged the sleeves so they looked filled. And he stood back and took a picture. He was documenting a graduation that never happened. He was memorializing a ghost. This is the unique cruelty of fentanyl. Cancer gives you time to say goodbye. Car accidents are sudden, but they are understood as accidents of physics. But fentanyl, it steals the legacy. For the middle-aged generation, the parents born in the 60s and 70s, children are not just offspring. They are the retirement plan for the soul. They are the immortality project. We work hard. We save money. We pay off mortgages, not for ourselves, but so we can pass something on. We want to see our features in their faces. We want to see them do better than we did. When a child dies of an overdose at 18 or 22, that future is not just interrupted, it is erased. The Grandfamilies phenomenon we mentioned earlier is part of this, but the empty chair is the other side of the coin. It is the end of the line. The family tree is cut down at the root. And now, let us zoom out from David's living room and look at the map of America. Multiply David's grief by 100,000 every single year. That is not just a tragedy, that is a demographic catastrophe. Every year, the United States is losing a city the size of South Bend, Indiana, or Burbank, California. But we are not losing the elderly. We are not losing the sick. We are losing the prime workforce. We are losing the engines of the economy. These were the people who were supposed to be the next generation of electricians, plumbers, nurses, software engineers, teachers, soldiers. They were the people who were supposed to pay into the social security system that supports the aging population. They were the people who were supposed to buy houses, start businesses, and invent the future. Now, they are gone. Economists have started to talk about the missing year. They are looking at the labour shortages in America and asking, where are the workers? The answer is uncomfortable. They are in the cemetery. We are hollowed out. And the most infuriating part of this loss is the one mistake rule. Think back to your own youth. Think about the mistakes you made. Maybe you drove too fast. Maybe you drank too much at a party. Maybe you experimented with something you shouldn't have. We survived those mistakes because the penalty for being stupid in 1990 was a hangover, or a ticket, or a scary night. The penalty for being stupid in 2024 is death. We have created a world where there is no learning curve. A teenager does not get to learn from a bad experience. They do not get to grow up and say, wow, I was reckless when I was young, because they do not get to grow up at all. This zero-tolerance biological environment is unnatural. It goes against the very essence of human development. Adolescence is designed for risk-taking. It is how we learn boundaries. But now, the boundary is a cliff edge, and we are pushing our children toward it blindfolded. David, the father with the empty gown, said something in an interview that stays with me. He said, I realized I was not mourning who he was. I was mourning who he would have been. He was mourning the unbuilt bridges his son would have engineered. He was mourning the grandchildren he would never hold. This is the stolen future. And yet, as we stand in this gymnasium, looking at the empty chair, thinking it cannot possibly get worse, the monster is evolving again. We cling to one hope. We tell ourselves, at least we have Narcan. At least if we catch it in time, we can save them. We hold on to that little red and white box of nasal spray like a talisman. It is our safety net. But the chemists in the underworld know about Narcan. They know it is the only thing standing between them and total domination of the user's life. And so, they went back to the lab. They decided to create a mixture that would cut the safety net. They found a drug that does not respond to Narcan. A drug that turns the human body into a rotting shell while the person is still walking. We are leaving the era of the sudden death. We are entering the era of the living death. The empty chair is tragic. But what is coming next is a horror movie that you cannot wake up from. Welcome to the age of the zombie drug. The year is 2024. If you thought the empty chair at the graduation ceremony was the end of the horror, you were wrong. The empty chair represents a clean death, a sudden stop, but in the neighbourhoods of North Philadelphia, specifically in an area called Kensington, a new chapter of hell is being written, and it is not about dying, it is about rotting. Welcome to the era of Tranq. For the last few years, public health officials had a strategy. It was a simple strategy. Flood the streets with Narcan. Narcan, or naloxone, is the miracle antidote, as we discussed earlier. It rips the opioids off the brain receptors and wakes the person up. It was our fire extinguisher. We taught mothers how to use it. We taught librarians. We taught police officers. We thought we had a checkmate against the overdose. But the chemists in the underworld saw our move, and they countered it. They realised that fentanyl has a marketing flaw. It is too strong, yes, but the high is too short. It is a flash in the pan. A user injects fentanyl, feels a massive rush, but 15 minutes later, they are sober, they are sick, they need more. This is bad for the user, who hates the constant cycle of withdrawal, and it is annoying for the dealer, who has to serve the same customer 20 times a day. So, the dealers looked for a way to give the fentanyl legs. They wanted to stretch out the high. They wanted to make it last like the old heroin did. They found the answer in the veterinary aisle again. They found Xylazine. Street name, Tranq. I need you to listen carefully. Xylazine is not an opioid. It is a non-opioid sedative. It is a central nervous system depressant used by veterinarians to sedate horses and cattle for surgery. It is designed to put a 1,000-pound animal onto the floor. When you mix Xylazine with fentanyl, you create a chemical cocktail known as Tranq dope. The fentanyl provides the euphoria. The Xylazine provides the nod. It knocks the user out for hours. It mimics the long, heavy sedation of heroin. But Xylazine does something else. Something that belongs in a horror movie. Not a medical textbook. It eats human flesh. Doctors are still trying to understand exactly why this happens. The leading theory is that Xylazine causes severe vasoconstriction. It shrinks the blood vessels. It reduces the oxygen supply to the skin. When a user injects Tranq, or even smokes it, they begin to develop wounds. But these are not normal needle marks. These are necrotic ulcers. They look like chemical burns. They start as small purple spots. Then they break open. They turn black. They fester. And here is the terrifying part. The wounds do not necessarily appear where the person injected the drug. You can inject it in your arm, and a hole will open up on your leg. The tissue dies from the inside out. The skin literally rots away, exposing the bone underneath. Walk down the streets of Kensington today, and you will see sights that will scar your memory. You will see people standing upright, bent over at the waist in a deep stupor, defying gravity. They call it the Tranq lean, but look closer at their arms and legs. You will see bandages soaked in blood. You will see open, gaping wounds that refuse to heal. Surgeons are overwhelmed. They cannot stitch dead tissue. They cannot save a limb that has no blood flow, so they cut. Amputations have skyrocketed. We are seeing a generation of young people in wheelchairs, missing arms, missing legs, not because of war, not because of diabetes, but because the drug supply has turned into a flesh-eating virus. The media has dubbed it the zombie drug. It is a sensational name, but for the families watching their loved ones decompose while still alive, it feels like an accurate description. But the physical horror is not the worst part. The worst part, the part that keeps ER doctors awake at night, is the chemical trap. Remember Narcan? Our miracle antidote, our fire extinguisher. It doesn't work on Xylazine. Narcan is a smart missile designed to hit only one target, the opioid receptor. But Xylazine does not use the opioid receptor. It works on the adrenergic receptors. It is a completely different system. Imagine a mother finding her son unconscious on the floor. His lips are blue. He is not breathing. She panics, but she is prepared. She has the little red box. She grabs the Narcan spray. She plunges it into his nose. She presses the plunger. She waits for the Lazarus effect. She waits for the gasp. She waits for his eyes to open. But nothing happens. He remains limp. He remains silent. She tries a second dose. Nothing. She tries a third dose. Nothing. The Narcan has successfully removed the fentanyl from his brain, but the Xylazine is still there, pinning him down like a heavy weight. He is chemically sedated by a horse tranquilizer, and there is no antidote in her home kit that can reverse it. The only way to save him is supportive care in a hospital. Oxygen, intubation, monitoring. But in that bedroom, in those critical minutes before the ambulance arrives, the mother is helpless. Her tool is broken. This is the Tranq trap. By mixing a sedative with an opioid, the cartels have created a monster that is immune to our only weapon, and because Xylazine is not a controlled substance in many places, it is just veterinary medicine. It is cheap. It is legal to buy online. It is everywhere. In Philadelphia, more than 90% of the fentanyl samples tested now contain Xylazine. It is spreading west. It is in Ohio. It is in Maryland. It is coming to a city near you. This changes the entire calculus of harm reduction for 10 years. The message was, carry Narcan, save a life. Now, the message is becoming, carry Narcan, but pray it is enough. And for the user, the tragedy is even deeper. When a person becomes addicted to Tranq dope, they are addicted to two different substances at once. If they try to quit, they face the traditional hell of opioid withdrawal, the sweating, the vomiting, the pain. But on top of that, they face Xylazine withdrawal. Xylazine withdrawal is a different beast. It causes extreme anxiety, high blood pressure, rapid heart rate, seizures. It is dangerous. Patients who try to go to detox centres are often turned away. The centres say, we know how to treat fentanyl, we do not know how to treat this. We cannot manage your open wounds, we cannot manage your seizures. So the patient is sent back to the street, back to the very drug that is eating them alive, because it is the only thing that stops the sickness. The cycle is hermetically sealed. The evolution of the drug supply has reached a point of total toxicity. We started with a plant that gave us joy and pain. We refined it into a medicine that gave us surgery. We synthesized it into a killer that stops the breath. And now, we have adulterated it into a poison that destroys the flesh and defies the cure. The monster has evolved to be unbeatable. But even in this landscape of total despair, there are people refusing to surrender. There are people who look at the rotting wounds and the blue lips and see not a zombie, but a human being. They are the new soldiers in this war. They do not carry guns. They do not carry badges. They carry a handbag. They carry a backpack. And inside, they carry the only hope we have left. We are about to meet the army of mothers who decided that if the government could not save their children, and if the doctors could not save their children, then they would have to do it themselves. Welcome to the resistance. The year is 2024. Walk into a CVS or a Walgreens anywhere in America today. Walk past the candy aisle, past the greeting cards, and go to the pharmacy counter. You might see a woman standing in line. She looks like a typical suburban mother. She's well dressed. She has a yoga mat under her arm. She's checking her emails on her phone. She does not look like a doctor. She does not look like a paramedic, and she certainly does not look like a drug user, but when she gets to the counter, she does not ask for antibiotics, she does not ask for blood pressure medication, she asks for naloxone, brand name, Narcan. The pharmacist does not blink. He reaches under the counter and hands her a small box containing 2 nasal spray devices. She pays $45. She puts the box in her designer handbag, right next to her lipstick and her car keys. She walks out. This scene is the new American normal. We have entered a phase of the crisis that historians will look back on with fascination and horror. We have deputized the population because the ambulance is too slow. because the police are too overwhelmed, and because the drug is too fast. We have turned the stay-at-home mother, the librarian, the coffee shop barista, and the high school teacher into accidental first responders. Let us focus on that woman with the handbag. Let us call her Sarah. Sarah carries Narcan not because she uses drugs. She carries it because she's a veteran of a war she never asked to fight. 3 years ago, Sarah lost her 19-year-old son to a counterfeit Percocet. She found him in his bedroom. She did not have Narcan then. She did not know what it was. She watched the paramedics try to save him, but it was too late. Now, she carries the spray like a talisman. It is a superstitious object. It is a way of bargaining with the universe, she tells herself. I could not save my own child, but maybe, just maybe, I can save someone else's. And one Tuesday afternoon, in the parking lot of a grocery store, the universe calls her bluff. She's loading bags into her trunk. She hears a commotion. A few cars down. A young man has collapsed. He is slumped against the tyre of his car. People are gathering around. They are filming with their phones. They are whispering. Is he drunk? Is he dead? Sarah does not film. She drops her groceries. She runs. She kneels in the asphalt. She sees the signs she knows too well, the grey skin, the blue lips. The death rattle, that terrifying, snoring sound a person makes when their lungs are forgetting how to work. The crowd backs away. They are afraid. They see a junkie. They see a threat. Sarah sees a boy. She sees her son. She opens her bag. Her hands are shaking, but her muscle memory takes over. She rips open the foil package. She tilts the boy's head back. She inserts the plunger into his nostril. She presses. She waits. 1 minute feels like an hour. She gives him a second dose in the other nostril. And then, the miracle happens. The Lazarus effect. The boy gasps. His body jerks. He sits up, terrified, confused, coughing. He has been pulled back from the edge of the void. The crowd exhales. The ambulance sirens wail in the distance. Sarah sits back on her heels. She is crying, not tears of joy, but tears of complicated, crushing grief. Because she just proved that it is possible. She just proved that a $45 piece of plastic can cheat death. And that proof makes the loss of her own son hurt even more. This is the reality of harm reduction in the 21st century, for a long time. Society debated the ethics of Narcan. Critics argued that giving people an antidote would just encourage them to use more drugs. They called it a moral hazard. They said it was a safety net that enabled bad behaviour. But fentanyl ended that debate. When the penalty for a single mistake is death, there is no time for moralising. You cannot rehabilitate a corpse. You cannot teach a lesson to a dead person. The priority shifted from stop the addiction to keep them breathing. We are now living in a world where Narcan training is becoming as common as CPR training. In libraries across America, librarians are trained to spot overdoses in the bathroom stalls. In music festivals, teenagers carry Narcan in their backpacks alongside their water bottles. In colleges, it is available in vending machines in the dorms. We have accepted that we are living in a toxic environment, just as we put fire extinguishers in every building because we accept that fires happen. We are putting Narcan in every pocket because we accept that poisoning happens. But there is a profound sadness in this adaptation. Think about what we are asking of our citizens. We are asking a 19-year-old girl to be prepared to revive her friends at a party. We are asking a mother to look at every sleeping person on a park bench and wonder if she needs to intervene. We're shifting the burden of public health onto the shoulders of traumatized civilians. And while the medication naloxone is a miracle of science, it binds to the opioid receptors with such force that it kicks the heroin molecule off. It is not a cure for the crisis. It is a bandage on a gunshot wound. The boy Sarah saved in the parking lot. He is alive today. But tomorrow, when he wakes up in the hospital or on the street, the fentanyl will wear off. The withdrawal will set in. The sickness will scream in his bones, and he will go looking for the very thing that almost killed him. Narcan buys time. That's all it does. It buys 30 minutes. It buys a second chance. But what do we do with that second chance? That is the question that haunts Sarah. She gave him life, but she cannot give him a reason to live. She cannot give him a job. She cannot give him mental health care. She cannot fix the broken world that he is trying to escape from. She goes back to her car. She puts the empty Narcan box in the trash. She drives home to her quiet house. She's a hero, but she feels like a failure. This psychological toll, the trauma of the rescuer, is a hidden epidemic within the epidemic. We have millions of Americans walking around with the memory of blue lips and dead eyes. But while fentanyl destroys the soul of the survivor and destroys the body of the user, it is doing something else, something cold and calculated. It is destroying the financial future of the middle class. We often talk about the emotional cost of addiction, but we rarely talk about the price tag. While Sarah is fighting for lives in the parking lot, a different kind of destruction is happening in the bank accounts of American families. The drug is not just stopping hearts, it is emptying savings accounts. It is liquidating retirement funds. It is shattering the economic stability that took generations to build. We have looked at the physical death. Now, we must look at the financial death. Because for the families trying to save a child from the grip of the ghost, the cost of survival is bankruptcy. The year is 2024. We have spent a lot of time in this series looking at the physical locations of the crisis, the morgue, the alleyway, the police station, the emergency room. But there is one room left in the house that we have not visited. It is the room where the lights stay on late into the night. Not because of grief, but because of math. The kitchen. Let us sit down at the table with a couple. Let's call them Robert and Linda. They are 60 years old. They are the definition of the American middle class. They did everything right. Robert worked at a manufacturing plant for 30 years. Linda was a school administrator. They paid their taxes. They paid off their mortgage. They skipped vacations to put money into their retirement accounts. They had a plan. They were going to retire to Florida. They were going to buy a boat. They were going to leave a nice inheritance for their son, Michael. But Michael is not in the picture. Michael is in a treatment centre in Arizona, or perhaps it is California, or Florida. Michael is addicted to fentanyl, and the nest egg, the result of 40 years of sweat and discipline, is gone. This is the silent, financial massacre that is happening behind the closed doors of the suburbs. We talk about the death toll of the opioid crisis, but we never talk about the financial death toll. Here is how it happens. It starts with a phone call. Michael has overdosed, or he has been arrested, or he has finally come home, weeping, begging for help. Robert and Linda are terrified. They love their son more than life itself. They will do anything to save him. They look for a rehabilitation centre. They find out very quickly that the rehab industrial complex is exactly that, an industry. They call a centre with a beautiful website showing horses and mountains and yoga classes. "Do you take our insurance?" Linda asks. The voice on the other end says, "We do, but your insurance only covers 7 days of detox. To truly heal, Michael needs a 30-day inpatient program, or 60 days, or 90. "How much is it?" Linda asks. $30,000 a month. Cash up front. $30,000. Robert and Linda look at each other. That is a new car. That is a renovation. But this is their son's life. How can you put a price on that? So, they write the check. They dip into their savings. Michael goes to rehab. For 30 days, they sleep soundly. They have hope. But then, Michael comes home. And here is the brutal reality of fentanyl addiction. The relapse rate is terrifyingly high. The brain has been rewired by a chemical so strong that willpower is often irrelevant. 2 months later, Michael relapses, and the cycle begins again. The spin cycle, detox, rehab, relapse, repeat. Check. Check, check. $30,000 becomes $60,000, then $90,000, then $150,000. The savings account runs dry, so they move to the next tier, the 401k, the retirement fund. They start liquidating their future to pay for their son's present. They pay the tax penalties. They watch the numbers drop. They refinance the house they spent 30 years paying off. They take out a second mortgage. They are hemorrhaging money. And the tragedy is, they are often paying for treatments that do not work. The addiction treatment industry in America is largely unregulated. It is filled with predators who know that a desperate parent is the perfect customer. They promise miracles. They deliver equine therapy and art classes, but they often fail to provide evidence-based medical treatment like Suboxone or methadone. Robert and Linda are not just victims of a drug. They are victims of a system that monetizes their desperation. And then, the final blow comes. Maybe the money runs out. Maybe Michael dies. Or maybe he ends up in prison for a long time, but he leaves something behind. A baby. Michael had a girlfriend. They had a child. A little girl named Sophie. The girlfriend is also addicted, or gone, or dead. The state steps in. Child Protective Services knocks on Robert and Linda's door. They have a choice. Let Sophie go into the foster care system, or take her in. Of course, they take her in. Welcome to the phenomenon of the Grand Family. Across Appalachia, across the Rust Belt, across the wealthy suburbs of New England, you'll see grey-haired people pushing strollers. These are people who should be on a cruise ship. They should be resting. Their knees hurt, their backs hurt, they are tired. But instead of retiring, they are unretiring. Robert goes back to work at the factory, if they will take him, or he takes a job at Walmart as a greeter. Linda starts tutoring again. Why? Because babies are expensive. Diapers, formula, clothes, school supplies. They are starting over at 65, but this time they do not have the energy of youth, and they do not have the time to save. The psychological toll is crushing. They are grieving their lost son while trying to raise his daughter. They are terrified that they will die before Sophie turns 18. Who will take care of her then? And the financial toll is absolute. The wealth that Robert and Linda accumulated is gone. It flowed out of their bank account and into the pockets of the rehab centres, the lawyers, and the dealers. It did not go to the next generation. It vanished. This is how the middle class collapses, not with a bang, but with a series of wire transfers. Fentanyl is an engine of poverty. It reverses the flow of generational wealth. Instead of money flowing down from parents to children, it is incinerated to keep the children alive for just one more month, one more week, one more day. Economists look at the charts and wonder why consumer spending is down in certain demographics. They wonder why people are not retiring. They are not retiring because they are paying a ransom. They are paying a ransom to a ghost that has taken their child hostage, and for Robert and Linda, sitting at that kitchen table late at night, staring at a bank statement that shows a balance of 0. There is a haunting realization. They have lost everything. They played by the rules, they worked hard, they were good people. But the drug does not care about rules. It does not care about fairness. It is an economic black hole that swallows entire lineages, and as they look at the baby monitor, watching little Sophie sleep, they feel a mix of overwhelming love and paralysing fear. They are the only thing standing between this child and the abyss. They are the exhausted guardians of a shattered dream. This financial devastation ensures that the scars of the fentanyl crisis will last for 50 years. Even if we stopped every single pill from crossing the border tomorrow, the economic damage is done. We have a generation of elders who are broke, and a generation of orphans who are starting from 0. The ledger is red. The debt is unpaid. And as we move to our final chapter, we have to ask ourselves if the police cannot stop it. and the doctors cannot cure it, and the money cannot fix it, what is left? What do we do when the systems we built to protect us have all failed? We are left with the only thing that has ever worked in human history. We are left with each other. It is time to close the book on the horror and look for the humanity. So, we have reached the end of the journey. We began this story in a quiet laboratory in Belgium, where a brilliant scientist named Paul Janssen chased a dream of ending human pain. We travelled through the poppy fields of Afghanistan, the boardrooms of Purdue Pharma, and the chaotic jungles of the Golden Triangle. We stood in the horrifying silence of the Moscow Theatre, and we stood in the deafening silence of a teenager's bedroom in Ohio. We have witnessed the evolution of a monster. We watched it transform from a medical miracle into a patch, then into a lollipop, then into a gas, and finally into a colourful piece of candy that looks like a toy. The history of fentanyl is not just a history of chemistry, it is a history of unintended consequences. It is a story about how our desire for convenience, for profit, and for relief created a trap that has snapped shut on an entire generation. But before we close the book on this dark chapter, we need to have one final, difficult conversation. We need to talk about how we fight back. For the last 50 years, the world has fought a war on drugs. We fought it with helicopters, with machine guns, with prison cells, and with handcuffs. We treated the drug crisis as a criminal problem. We looked at the person on the street corner and we saw a villain. We saw a lawbreaker. But the fentanyl crisis has shattered that framework. The enemy we are fighting today is not a person, it is a molecule. And you cannot arrest a molecule. You cannot intimidate a chemical bond. The victims of this war are not criminals. The 19-year-old who buys a pill on Snapchat to help him study is not a criminal. The construction worker who buys a pill to fix his back so he can go to work on Monday is not a criminal. The toddler who eats a rainbow-coloured tablet off the coffee table is certainly not a criminal. They are victims of a mass poisoning event. We have to change our language. We have to stop using the word overdose for many of these deaths. An overdose implies that you took too much of a drug you knew you were taking. It implies a reckless excess. But when a kid takes one pill that he thinks is Xanax, and it kills him instantly because it is carfentanil, that is not an overdose. That is a poisoning. That is murder by fraud. And because the nature of the threat has changed, our response must change too. We cannot win this war with silence for too long. The families of the victims have lived in the shadows. When a child died of fentanyl, the obituary would say, died suddenly at home, or died of heart failure. Parents were ashamed. They were afraid of the judgment. They were afraid of the word addict. But shame is the best friend of the cartel. Silence is the soil in which the ghost grows. Every time we hide the truth, we allow the predator to remain invisible. The only way to break the cycle is to scream the truth from the rooftops. We need to tell the stories of the empty chairs. We need to show the pictures of the Forever 21 generation. We need to look our children in the eye and have a conversation that is very different from the ones our parents had with us. The old advice was just say no. It was a moral instruction. The new advice is a survival manual. We have to tell them, I know you're curious. I know you are stressed. I know you want to fit in, but the landscape has changed. The pill you see at the party is not a pill. It is a loaded gun. There is no such thing as a safe experiment anymore. We have to teach them that the digital dealer is not their friend, that the algorithm is a trap. And we have to teach ourselves compassion. We have to look at the person leaning on the corner in Kensington, with the rotting wounds and the vacant eyes, and realise that, there but for the grace of God go I. That person was once a baby in a crib. That person had dreams. That person is someone's child. The opposite of addiction, as the saying goes, is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. We cannot uninvent fentanyl. The formula C22H28N20 is here to stay. It will always exist in the lexicon of chemistry. But we can choose how we face it. We can choose to equip every handbag with Narcan. We can choose to fund treatment instead of prisons. We can choose to support the grandparents raising the orphans. And most importantly, we can choose to build a world where our children do not feel the need to escape into a chemical fog in the first place. This story began with a mother knocking on a bedroom door in Ohio. She was looking for her son. She wanted to wake him up for breakfast. She wanted to see his smile, but she found only silence. The tragedy of the fentanyl crisis is not the violence of the cartels. It is not the greed of the Sackler family. The ultimate tragedy is the simplicity of the desire that led to the death. Most of these kids just wanted to sleep. They just wanted to stop the noise in their heads for a few hours. They just wanted to feel okay. They were looking for a moment of peace, and they found eternity instead. We owe them more than grief. We owe them a legacy. We owe them a world where a single mistake, made on a lonely Tuesday night, does not demand the price of a human life. Thank you for joining me on this harrowing journey into the heart of the modern darkness, if this story resonated with you. Or if you have an empty chair at your table, please do not stay silent. Share your story in the comments, say their names. Let us build a memorial here, not of shame, but of support. Take a moment to like this video to help the algorithm, the good algorithm. Share this warning with the people who need to hear it most. Stay safe. Look out for each other. And I will see you for the next chapter of history on the historian's desk.